Australia is turning its back on the world's most vulnerable people. Global resettlement needs currently exceed the number of places available by a ratio of 1 to 10. And it's a simple fact that only a small proportion of asylum seekers are even registered with the UNHCR. It's often very difficult and even impossible for asylum seekers to get help from the UN. They may not know it exists, or it may be too dangerous to get to a city where the office is. Even if they're able to contact the UN and get refugee status, there is often very little the UN can assist them to do in order to find safety. Of the 10.5 million refugees that are under the mandate of the UNHCR, less than 1% may be resettled in any given year. Even when asylum seekers do have their refugee claims granted, waits can be erratic and lengthy, and it isn't an orderly line. As we've heard it before, it's not a place in a queue, it's a ticket in a lottery. No policy of ours is going to change the fact that people are fleeing for their lives. Someone arriving by boat is no less worthy of protection than someone who's been waiting in a refugee camp. Nearly all of the boat arrivals in recent years have been people from Afghanistan, Sri Lanka and Burma, countries in which minority groups face severe human rights abuse. Creating policies that selectively apply to boat arrivals, not plane arrivals, is in contravention of the Refugee Convention. The policy is a wolf in sheep's clothing. It claims to save lives while condemning people to appalling treatment and further abuses of their human rights. It does nothing to prevent the abusive, degrading conditions for asylum seekers in Indonesia and elsewhere in the Asia Pacific. This policy is massively expensive and will likely cost Australia billions of dollars. It draws money away from our international development and aid contributions. Offshore detention and resettlement draws serious concerns. In many instances, the PNG government is unable to uphold the human rights standards for its own population. The Department of Immigration's own Smart Traveller website gives us an insight into the reality of PNG. It states there is a high level of serious crime, ethnic disputes escalating into violent clashes, carjacking, sexual assaults, gang rape, and the list goes on. If refugees are settled there, it's quite possible they'll continue to face the same persecution for the exact things that led them to flee in the first place. We also have additional concerns for LGBTI asylum seekers. By sending them to a country where homosexuality is a criminal offence and can attract a jail sentence of 14 years. So without significant funding and improvement in infrastructure and legislation, we'll be unable to ensure these policies uphold the rights of asylum seekers. And it's not only the rights under the Refugee Convention, it's the Convention on the Rights of the Child or the Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. We have a responsibility to these people and should not be shifting our humanitarian responsibilities to our regional neighbours. So let's be clear, over 90% of asylum seekers are found to be refugees. These are people who have fled persecution and torture. Seeking asylum is their legal right. Australia considers itself a civilised country, and a civilised country is one that respects human rights.